The auction that changed everything. Liam stood near the edge of the alien auction hall, watching strange creatures bargain over things he had never seen before. Tall beings with glowing skin waved credit sticks while metal-armored traders barked in dozens of languages all around him, but Liam kept his eyes on the next item up for bid, a sealed crate marked with an ancient Terran logo, the kind used on old ship engines from Earth. He squinted and leaned forward, hoping it was the part he needed. The last piece to fix his broken engine. If he got it today, he could finally leave this floating rust bucket of a space station and never look back. His heart pounded as the announcer with silver tentacles raised his voice, calling out numbers. As the crate rolled onto the platform, bidders raised their hands, shouting prices in credits and tokens and minerals. Liam hesitated, but then lifted his hand, matching the last bid. Silence followed. Then the announcer's eyes fixed on him. The crowd turned. Liam felt a strange chill run through his chest. Then the crate was wheeled away, and from behind a curtain, a figure stepped out. Not a machine, not an engine, not a part, but a girl. She walked slowly under the bright auction lights, her silver hair tied in braids, her skin pale and marked with glowing lines, her eyes wide, like she didn't understand what was happening, or maybe she did too well. The crowd buzzed with whispers and cruel smiles. Some took notes, others just stared. Liam's throat tightened, his hand dropped to his side. He stepped forward, trying to speak, but the announcer cut him off. Sold to the Terran bidder for 8,000 credits. Take good care of her. No, I didn't mean to buy a person, Liam said, his voice low and shaky. I thought I was bidding on a part, not her. The announcer waved his hand, already turning to the next sale. Liam looked at the girl. She stood still, not moving, not blinking, just staring at him like she was waiting for orders. What's your name? He asked gently. She didn't answer, just looked at him, then slowly said Era in a soft voice, as if saying it hurt. I didn't mean to do this, he whispered. He turned to leave, but she followed him, her bare feet light on the metal floor. Every time he paused, she stopped too. Every time he moved, she did the same. You don't have to come with me, he said, trying to be firm. I didn't buy you. She looked down, then back at him, then said quietly, if I stay, they will hurt me again. The words hit him like a fist. He looked around, but no one was paying attention. Now the crowd moved on. The next item was on stage, and nobody cared about the girl who had just been sold. Liam ran a hand through his hair, confused, angry, unsure, but mostly guilty. He never believed in buying anyone or anything living, but leaving her here felt worse than wrong. Fine, you can come with me until we figure this out, but I'm not your owner, and you're not a thing. You're free, do you understand? She looked confused by the word free, like it was in a language she didn't fully know, but she nodded and followed him out of the auction hall. They walked through narrow corridors filled with blinking signs and strange food smells. Era stayed close, but never touched him, her movements quiet, like she was trained to take up no space. When they reached Liam's tiny rented room, he opened the door and let her step inside. First, she didn't look around or ask questions, just stood near the wall and waited. You can sit, you don't need to stand like that, he said, trying to smile, but she didn't move, so he sat down on his bunk and started talking, more to himself than to Harry. Only came here for a part. My ship's engine blew out 2 weeks ago, and this was the only place with the model I needed. But I guess I messed up. Her watched him, her face calm, but her eyes sharp. He noticed her hands were trembling, just a little, like she was cold or scared, or both. He reached into a small box and pulled out a blanket. Here, he said, offering it. She hesitated, then took it slowly, wrapping it around her shoulders. They sat in silence for a while. Liam tried to think of what to do next. Should he report the mistake? Should he go back? Should he try to free her officially? But what if the auction didn't allow that? What if taking her back meant punishment, or worse? You don't have to stay with me, he said again. But this time she looked at him clearly and said, where would I go? He didn't have an answer to that. She wasn't chipped like the others. He had seen no collar, no visible mark, but the glow lines on her skin told another story. She had been made for this, sold, trained, controlled. He looked at her and saw something breakable under the surface. Something trying to stay strong, something that had never been given a real choice. Then he made a choice himself. You can stay here as long as you want, and I promise no one will hurt you again, not while you're with me for the first time. Era's expression changed a little, not a smile, but softer, less guarded. Her eyes flicked to the floor, then back to his face as if testing his words for lies and finding none. Outside the room, the noise of the station went on, but inside, for just a moment, there was peace. But Liam didn't know yet that peace never lasted long here, especially when someone else had just realized their most valuable asset had walked out of the auction with the wrong man, and that man was now a target. The bond neither wanted. Era woke before Liam did, standing near the window, watching the passing lights of the space station corridors, her hands wrapped in the blanket. He gave her eyes calm, but her thoughts loud inside her head. She did not understand this man, who spoke gently and gave her a place to sit and did not demand anything. She had been raised in silence, trained to follow, to please, to obey. But this man, he kept saying she was free. He had no collar for her, no orders, no punishment. When she said nothing, Liam stirred on the bunk and opened his eyes slowly, surprised to see her awake already, and even more surprised that she had not vanished in the night. You slept standing up, he said quietly, more like a thought than a question. She looked at him and replied softly, sitting means comfort. Comfort makes me weak. He blinked for a moment, unsure how to respond, then stood up, stretched, and moved to the corner where he kept a small heater and food tray. He handed her a steaming drink, and she held it with both hands, staring into the cup as if trying to understand what it was. You don't have to act like a shadow, he said. I'm not going to hurt you. She sipped the drink, and her eyes widened, not in fear, but confusion. Flavor was not something she was used to, was sweet, warm. It made her heart beat faster. You are strange, she said. I get that a lot. Liam smiled, but his smile faded when the station lights outside flickered once, then returned to normal. Only Liam noticed it. Era reigned still, as if nothing had happened. They know, she said simply. What do you mean? He asked. The ones who owned me, they track everything. They will come. Liam felt a chill crawl down his neck. He walked to the console and checked his messages. Nothing urgent, just a few junk ads and old repair notices. But Era's words stayed with him like a shadow he could not shake. What happens if they find us? He asked slowly. They will take me and erase you. She said it with no emotion, just like a fact, like gravity or fire. No, they won't. Liam said, more to himself than her. You do not understand how they think, she added. They do not forget, and they do not forgive. Liam turned to her, his jaw tight, his fingers clenching. They'll have to come through me. Then Era looked at him, puzzled again. Why do you care? She asked. I am just a project you did not mean to buy. May care because you're not a thing. Liam said, because you're a person, and you didn't ask for any of this. Era did not speak after that. She just sat down on the floor quietly, like a student trying to learn a language without words. That night, Liam did not sleep much. He kept one hand on his old plasma tool under the pillow and the door locked tight. He knew enough about the station to understand how power worked and how secrets moved, and if Era was right, they would come, and soon. Next day came without warning. The lights in the hall shifted to red emergency signals. No alarms, just subtle enough to alert those who knew what it meant. Era stepped back from the window and spoke without looking. They are inside. Liam grabbed a small pack and tossed a spare cloak to Era. Come on, we're moving. They slipped into the hallway using the maintenance tunnels to avoid security cameras. Era moved like smoke, her footsteps silent, her eyes scanning every corner. Liam tried to keep up, his heart racing, but his grip steady. They reached an old cargo bay where Liam had hidden a backup pod long ago. Era paused before stepping in. Where does this go? She asked. Out of here, he said quietly. Somewhere they can't follow. She nodded and stepped in, and he followed, sealing the door and hitting the launch code. The pod shook as it detached from the station and fell into silent drift before the small boosters kicked in. Liam sat down across from her, breathing hard. That should give us a head start, he said. They will follow. Era said, not yet, but soon. Then we keep moving, Liam replied, and we find a place where they can't find you. Era tilted her head again and said nothing for a while. Then she asked, do all humans protect strangers like this? No, Liam said, just the ones who remember what it feels like to be Powerless Era stared at him, and for the first time something in her expression changed, not fear. Not obedience, something softer, maybe trust or something close to it. The pod landed at a quiet outpost floating between trade routes. Liam had been here once before, a broken place run by humans, who wanted no questions and offered no answers. Perfect for hiding, perfect for starting over. They rented a room small and dusty, and Liam fixed the door himself while Era sat and watched her fingers twitching, as if they wanted to move but did not know how. "You can do what you want here," he said finally. She looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means if you want to draw, then draw. If you want to sleep, then sleep. No one will stop you." She blinked slowly, then reached for a cracked screen on the table and began to sketch not words, but shapes, curves, circles, stars, and eyes and hands, and cages. Liam watched and said nothing. Later that night, as they ate food heated from an old pack, Era said, "They will not stop. Then we won't stop either." Liam replied, "We'll keep going until they can't reach you." She looked at him and said, "I do not understand your kind. Maybe you don't need to," he said. "Just know that you don't have to be alone anymore." Era nodded slowly, her fingers still drawing, even as sleep crept into her eyes, and Liam sat back watching the stars flicker through the tiny window, wondering what kind of storm was coming next, because something told him this was just the beginning. Hunted by the owners, quiet of the outpost did not last long. Ships came and went, lights blinked, messages flowed across the skies, but something invisible crept through it all, like a shadow with eyes. Era felt it first, a strange silence in the air around her, not peace but warning. She stood near the door, her back straight, her senses wide open. Liam returned from the repair yard holding old tools and spare wires. He was tired and dusty, but smiled when he saw her. "You okay?" he asked. She did not answer at first, then finally said, "They are close." Liam froze. "Close? How close?" She pointed upward, then to the right, then toward the docking ring. "3 signs, 3 directions. They are scanning all arrivals," she said slowly. "They do not know our exact face, but they are looking for a shape like me, a signature like mine. Then we need to move." Liam said fast. He opened the floor panel, pulled out a small cube with blinking lights, pressed a code, and the walls shifted, revealing a tunnel beneath the floor. "Does that go?" Era asked. "To the trash chute," Liam answered with a shrug. "But if we time it right, it dumps us into a service pipe that leads to the outer edge of the station. From there, we can reach the old mining shuttles and maybe slip away before they block every exit." They climbed down without speaking. Era held onto the metal rails, her body moving with quiet strength. Liam followed, clutching the cube that held fake ID codes and an old nav chip he hoped still worked. The tunnel was dark, damp, and smelled like oil and rust. Liam turned on a dim light, and they crawled for what felt like hours, until they reached a grated exit. He pushed it open slowly and peeked out. The corridor was empty for now. They stepped into the open and walked quickly, passing old workers and drunk traders. No one paid attention until they reached the mining bay. There, near the far corner, stood a tall figure in black armor, not moving, not speaking, just waiting. Liam pulled Era back into the shadows. "We have to go around," he whispered. "Too late." Era said, "They saw us." The figure turned slowly, then tapped something on his arm, and 2 more figures appeared from behind crates. One of them raised a scanner and pointed it at the crowd. People started moving back, confused and annoyed, but not scared. "Not yet. We split up," Liam said. "Meet at Dock 3. She nodded without hesitation and ran left while he went right. The figures followed both paths, splitting just like them. Liam ducked behind an old loader and crawled through the engine compartment. He could hear heavy boots behind him, scanners beeping, a low voice saying confirm match, and then silence. Again, Era moved like wind between shadows, her eyes scanning every exit, every vent, every possible way out. She leaped over a rail, dropped into a lower deck, and vanished from view. One of the hunters followed, but she was gone before he could track her. Liam reached Dock 3, first panting, bleeding from a scrape on his shoulder. He opened the hatch of the mining shuttle and started the ignition sequence. It coughed once, then whirred to life. Looked back through the glass, watching for her Come on, Era appeared on the far end of the hallway, running fast, her feet barely touching the ground behind her. The last hunter aimed a stun beam and fired, but missed. She jumped through the door just as Liam slammed it shut and launched the shuttle into the dark. They sat in silence for a long time, Liam breathing hard, Era holding her arm where the beam had grazed her skin, red and shaking. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded but said nothing, then looked at him with tired eyes. "You should have left me," she said. "Not a chance," Liam said with a weak smile. "Besides, you're the one who saved me. Remember that flip over the railing was insane." Era closed her eyes and whispered, "I was trained to survive, but this is the first time I wanted to." Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he just set the course for a moon he once hit on years ago. A place with caves and old tech and silence, the kind that did not ask questions. The stars moved past them. Ira spoke again. "They will not stop, and now you are marked too." "Then we keep running," Liam said, "until they stop looking or we make them stop you." "Speak like you believe that can happen." "I do believe it," Liam said, "because they don't know what we are willing to fight for." Rhaera looked at him and saw something different in his face. Not just kindness, not just stubbornness, but something deeper, like a fire that had been waiting for a reason to burn. They reached the moon by morning and landed near the edge of a canyon. Liam checked the air and opened the hatch. They stepped out into dry wind and red dust, the silence around them heavy, but not empty. "We can hide here for a while," Liam said. "Maybe fix up some kind of signal blocker and figure out what to do next." Era nodded and walked a little ahead, then stopped and said, "Do you think I can ever be more than what they made me?" Liam stepped beside her and said, "You already are." For the first time she smiled, not fully, not wide, but enough to light her face for a moment, and that moment stayed with Liam longer than he expected. But far above them, in the orbit of the moon, a small black ship floated without lights, without sound, scanning every surface below, and slowly turning its eye toward the canyon, where two fugitives dared to dream of freedom, a choice that can't be undone. The wind on the moon howled like an animal trapped in a cage. The canyon stretched out before Liam and Era, dark shadows falling across jagged rocks and dusty ground. For a moment, everything felt still, quiet. It was the kind of place that could make anyone believe they were safe. Liam looked at the shuttle's engine, his hands busy tightening bolts and checking wires. The ship had taken a beating, but it was still running. He would keep it running as long as he could. Every second here felt like borrowed time. They didn't know how long they could hide. Era sat on a rock nearby, her eyes scanning the sky. She didn't trust the quiet. She couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. She had been trained to survive, but she had also been trained to be watched. And now, for the first time in her life, she was out of the cage. But the fear of being caught never left her. Liam turned to her, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You okay?" he asked, not knowing what else to say. She didn't answer immediately. She kept looking at the sky, her face unreadable. "I don't know," she said finally. "I don't think I'll ever be okay. I was made to be a tool, Liam, a weapon. They gave me no choice in that, and now I don't know how to be anything else." Liam stood up and walked over to her. He could see the way her hands clenched into fists, the way her jaw tightened. He knew she was struggling, but he didn't have all the answers. He only knew one thing for sure. "You're more than what they made you," he said. "You've shown me that. You've saved my life more than once now. That's not a tool, that's a person. A person who chooses what to do, when to act." Era looked at him, her eyes wide. "I'm not sure I believe you," she said quietly. Liam smiled a little, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, you don't have to believe me yet," he said. "But you will. You'll figure it out. You'll see." They both fell silent again. The only sound was the wind blowing across the canyon. The longer they stayed here, the more the world felt like it was closing in. They couldn't hide forever. Liam started to walk back to the shuttle, his thoughts racing. "We need to move soon," he said. "I don't know how long this place will be safe. The owners won't stop looking for you." Era stood up, dusting her hands off. "You're right. she said. They'll come, and they'll come with everything they have. And when they do, we'll be ready. Liam stopped and looked at her, surprised by the strength in her voice. He had heard the fear in her earlier, but now it was gone. She was ready for whatever came next. That's the spirit, he said with a nod. We'll make sure they don't take you back. Not without a fight. She didn't smile, but there was something in her eyes now, something that wasn't there before. She didn't feel like a tool anymore. She felt like someone who could choose her own future. And that was everything. Hours passed as they prepared. They scavenged what they could from the nearby wreckage and made sure the shuttle was ready for another jump. Liam worked as fast as he could, but in the back of his mind, he knew they were running out of time. Finally, as the moon's light faded into the cold dark of space, Liam turned to Era. It's time, he said. We can't stay here any longer. We have to move. She nodded without a word, her face calm but determined. She was ready to face whatever came next. She was ready to fight. Liam climbed into the shuttle first, his hands on the controls. He set the course for a deep space sector. Somewhere far from here, where the owners wouldn't think to look. It was a risk, but it was their best shot. He looked over at Era. You ready? Era sat in the seat across from him, her face hard and steady. She didn't say anything, but the way she held herself said everything. She was ready to fight. She was ready to run. They launched into space, the stars rushing past them. For a while, they didn't say anything. They both knew what was at stake. And they both knew that the journey ahead wasn't going to be easy. But as they reached the edge of the station's radar range, Liam felt something shift. He looked at Era, who was staring out the window, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite read. What's going through your mind? He asked. Era turned to him, her eyes soft but determined. I'm thinking about what comes after this. After we escape, after we're free, what will I do then? Liam thought about it for a moment. I guess we figure it out, he said with a shrug. But we don't have to know all the answers right now. We just have to keep moving forward. Era nodded. Yeah, I suppose that's all we can do. They fell into silence again, both lost in their thoughts. But as the shuttle drifted further from the station, Liam felt a small weight lift off his chest. They were still alive. They were still fighting. And that was enough for now. But far behind them, in the depths of the galaxy, a dark ship watched. It wasn't the same ship that had tried to catch them before, but it was just as dangerous. It was a hunting ship, a ship built to track, to find, and to capture. And it had just locked onto their trail. Liam didn't know it yet, but the fight was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Freedom costs everything. Stars were a blur outside the shuttle windows as Liam and Era drifted deeper into the unknown space. The ship hummed steadily, its engines pushing them farther from the dangers they'd left behind. But both of them knew it wasn't enough. They couldn't outrun their past forever. Liam stared at the controls in front of him, his fingers tense on the steering. They had to get somewhere safe, somewhere the owners couldn't follow, somewhere no one would look for them. But the universe was vast, and their chances of finding such a place were slim. He looked over at Era. She sat quietly staring out the window. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of thoughts, full of things she didn't say. She hadn't spoken much since they left the moon. Something in her had shifted. She was no longer the person who just ran. She was starting to understand what it meant to fight, to make choices that couldn't be undone. Are you okay? Liam asked, his voice soft. Era didn't turn to him at first. She took a deep breath and then spoke, her voice low but steady. I keep thinking about how easy it would be for them to find us. How easy it would be for me to just be gone again. Liam's heart tightened. He had never fully understood the weight of what she had gone through, how deeply she had been trained to believe. She was nothing more than a tool. He leaned back in his seat and said, You're not going back. Not to them. Not ever. She turned her head to him slowly, her eyes searching his face. "You're saying that like you think it's that simple," she said. "Like they can just stop looking. And we'll be free." Liam looked at her for a long moment. He wasn't sure how to explain what he felt. He wasn't even sure he understood it himself. But he knew one thing. He would do whatever it took to protect her. "I don't know if it's simple, but I know we have to keep trying. We have to fight for this." "Fight for you." Era's lips parted, but before she could say anything, the console in front of them beeped a loud, urgent sound that made both of them freeze. Liam's eyes snapped to the screen, his heart pounding. The message was short and clear. "Incoming ship. Unauthorized. Approaching fast." Liam cursed under his breath. Not again. He quickly scanned the space around them, but there was nothing to see. Not yet. He knew the owners wouldn't stop until they had her. And now they were closing in. "We're not outrunning this one," he muttered. "They found us. They're too close." Era didn't say anything. She just stood up, her body tense, her mind already racing. They were in danger again. But this time, it felt different. This time she wasn't afraid. She had learned to fight. And she was ready to do it. Liam slammed his fist on the control panel. "We need to lose them." Now he punched a series of buttons, and the shuttle jerked forward, its engines firing with a burst of speed. But the ship behind them wasn't slowing down. It was gaining on them, faster than Liam had anticipated. Whoever was piloting that ship knew exactly what they were doing. They had done this before. Era, grab the weapons." Liam shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. Era moved quickly, pulling out a small stash of weapons they had scavenged from the moon. She didn't hesitate. She loaded a pulse gun, aiming it at the control panel. "We can't outrun them, but we can fight," she said. Liam glanced over at her, his eyes filled with both fear and admiration. He didn't know where she had learned how to use the weapon, but in that moment, it didn't matter. They had no choice but to fight. The enemy ship fired first. A blast of bright blue light shot across the space between them, narrowly missing the shuttle. Liam swerved the controls, barely avoiding the blast. He gritted his teeth. They were too close now. Too close to escape. He pulled the shuttle into a sharp dive, twisting and turning in the cold darkness of space. Era fired back, hitting the enemy ship with a series of blasts. But their ship was still gaining, and they were running out of space. Liam pushed the throttle forward, hoping the shuttle's broken engines could handle the strain. "We need a plan," he muttered. "We need to disable their ship." "But how?" Era's eyes narrowed as she watched the enemy ship come closer. "There's a weak spot near their main engine," she said. "I can target it. Just give me the shot." Liam didn't hesitate. He locked onto the target and brought the shuttle around in a sharp arc, making sure they stayed out of the firing line. Era took aim, her breath steady. Then, with one precise shot, she hit the weak spot in the enemy ship's engine. The ship shuddered and slowed, sparks flying from its rear engines. The pursuing ship was no longer a threat, at least for now. But they were still not safe. The moment they stopped running, they would be vulnerable. Liam let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Good shot," he said. Era didn't smile. She just lowered the weapon and turned back to the controls. "We're not done yet," she said quietly. "They'll send more. And next time, they won't miss." Liam looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll be ready. We've come this far. We're not stopping now." For the first time since they started running, Liam felt something he hadn't felt before. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He wasn't just protecting someone else. He was fighting for something bigger. For a future. And in that moment, he knew he wouldn't let anything take it away. The end.